If you're a frequent PNW Haunts and Homicides listener, you probably already know we're Birdie ambassadors.
We wanted to take a quick moment to tell you a little bit more about this awesome product.
Birdie is the modern personal safety alarm made for women by women.
In a situation where you feel threatened or unsafe, you can simply activate Birdie's loud siren and flashing light to create a diversion.
Birdie is perfect to carry anytime because the device is lightweight and comes in a variety of colors.
So important. Use our ambassador link and coupon code PNW Haunts and Homicides to receive 10% off your purchase. Like our social media handles, the coupon code is all spelled out, no special characters.
You can find the link and promo code in our show notes or PNW Haunts and Homicides link tree.
Have a safe ass day. As indie podcasters, we love to show our support of other awesome shows. So stay tuned for the promo we've got to share with you this week.
Let's show them some love. You can find their info in our show notes.
How does a quick deep dive into a folklore topic sound to you? From an exploration of places or traditions, to a thorough investigation of themes such as British fairy creatures or ocean monsters, to eclectic topics such as cheese and modern-day creepypasta. Luke Lore is a twice-a-month show hosted by myself, Luke Greensmith, and filled with wonder, very British sardonic wit, and no small amount of creeping dread as stories from around the world are brought to life. You can find Luke Lore anywhere you enjoy podcasts, while the scripts of the show are available for reference at www.lukelore.com.
You guys, we're back! And don't worry, we did get more wine.
Well, of course.
Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, creepy people.
Hi.
This is PNW Haunts and Homicides.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Confirmed.
Yeah.
Can confirm.
Can confirm this case is definitely going to repay you for Sapporo.
Oh, thanks.
You're so welcome. I've been working on it for a while.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's almost like I knew that I would need to really bring it.
You knew I was going to pull something scary out of my ass.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I think I pulled something scarier out of my ass. Unfortunately, I pulled this from somewhere other than my ass. And I think you'll be not super happy with where I pulled it from.
Okay.
So,
well, I mean, at least it wasn't out of your ass, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'm comfortable with this coming from elsewhere.
Okay.
Do you like the Gilmore Girls?
Yes. Do you even know me?
Okay. All right. I just had to ask you before
you bash them? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, you'll see.
Are you going to ruin Gilmore Girls for me?
I don't know. We'll see.
Caitlin.
I officially found the crime that, according to my notes, could ruin the Gilmore Girls for even the most diehard of fans.
I hate you.
I know. Please don't unsubscribe. I'm obviously angry too. And trust me when I say the name is just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
Not in terms of the Gilmore Girls per se, but I mean, you'll see.
Can we go back to the Titanic references? That made me more comfortable.
I don't think I have any for this one.
Well, you just said the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, yeah. That's, yeah.
Iceberg right ahead. Oh, we are charging forward.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's go. Hit me. Fuck me up.
I mean, okay. If you haven't heard the news yet, I regret to inform you that a dangerous serial rapist is about to be released in Multnomah County.
I don't like it.
I didn't think you would. Multnomah County is right on the edge of basically the counties where Cassie and I both reside.
Yeah.
As well as a lot of other people. But,
Yeah.
you know, selfishly, it's our own self-interest.
Is Portland Multnomah County?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just making sure I was
Yeah,
thinking
you're
of
like, am I?
Portland is what I was getting at.
Yeah, yeah.
The big city.
So that kind of informs why, you guys, I'm shaking with rage and maybe a little bit of fear. Because the truth is, this man is a clear and present danger right in our neck of the woods. And no, I am not kidding. 'Tis not April.
No.
No.
She don't fuck around.
Mm-mm. The only thing that I can say here to lighten the mood is that if it makes anyone feel better, this man spells Richard Gilmore differently.
Okay.
Now, for those of you that aren't fans of the show Gilmore Girls, because I guess there could be some of you, but also that didn't immediately tune out, Richard Gilmore is the beloved grandfatherly figure in the classic mother-daughter throwback from this elder millennial's youth.
Aww. R.A.P.
Mm-hmm. Also, how are things under that rock?
Is it nice under there, Patrick? That's a SpongeBob reference.
I know. Well, be warned, though, that's almost certainly the last laugh.
Okay.
Certainly the last hearty laugh, if you got a hearty laugh out of that.
Okay. You better have.
Yeah. In all seriousness, we try not to overdo it with, you know, trigger warnings because we think most of you know that true crime can be a rather gnarly genre.
Mm-hmm.
However, I also know what absorbing this type of content did to me throughout the course of my research. And I think if you feel safe enough to listen to content about sexual assault right now, it's a very important story. But for those of you that might be getting ready to go back to a spooky episode to pass the time instead, I think it's really important for you to be aware that this does pertain to a dangerous criminal that will be rejoining the public in the Portland metro area before the end of the year.
Oh, I just got chills. Like it just got freezing in here.
Mm-hmm. It's really funny because that's, I know this and it's still giving me the chills. And then you said it and I was like, that's real apparently.
It is real.
So I'm not happy about it. I think it goes without saying. I'm not even sure his mother seems thrilled, in all honesty.
I would hope not.
I mean, I'm not going to talk bad about people's mothers. So, all right, we're going to get into it now, though, because I think we've done our due diligence and all of the PSAs. So tune in, tune out. You know, that's everybody's decision based on what they feel like they can kind of tackle this week.
Yeah. Maybe at least check out the show description so you know who we're talking about.
Yeah, I do think just from the aspect of public safety, if nothing else, people just need to know about this. So, and I'll try to include as many of the links that I think will be informative without necessarily being quite as triggering.
Okay.
And the Pastebin will have, I think I'm up to about just shy of maybe 50 different resources.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow. She went all out.
Oh, I went real wild on all of the resources. So,
Okay.
Richard Gillmore was born November 8th of 1959. We're about just a little over a week away from his birthday right now.
Yeah.
Sort of seems like his date of birth has been all but redacted from the internet, and I thought that seemed odd since you could probably look up first and last names along with tons of personal information about his victims.
But not about him?
I had to look through several copies of different official public record documents regarding his parole hearings, his trials, before I could find one that didn't redact his birth date.
I wonder why. Did they say?
Because they really wanted to anger me.
Let's piss off Caitlin today.
Yeah.
Redact it.
Yeah. There is sort of a brief explanation because, as per usual, when it comes to the kind of some of the reasoning behind some of those things when it comes to law enforcement, a lot of times Chris is able to give me a little bit of insight there. I still thought it was stupid, so I didn't include it. So it was important to me. I really wanted to share it with you guys. It's very important to include his date of birth in this story.
I'm glad that you found it.
Yeah,
No.
me too. There will be links to both. I believe I have a copy of a redacted version and an unredacted version of some of the court documents that I found. So
Okay.
have fun with that, kids.
I'm not reading them. You've done the hard part for me.
Yeah, yeah. Richard Troy Gillmore's clever criminal alias coined by the media coverage was the Jogger Rapist.
That's unpleasant.
Deeply.
Okay. Was he the jogger or?
He was the jogger. And actually, this is a very important aspect of his MO.
Okay. So he wasn't attacking joggers, which is kind of common.
Right.
Okay.
That's exactly what you would think of, right?
Yes.
I'm so glad that you said that.
Yay.
Yeah.
I passed.
The literal next sentence. And I took a huge sigh of relief because all I have to do is not take up jogging, right?
Wrong.
My next sentence, wrong. You cannot make this up.
I can read her mind, everybody.
It's so much more insidious than that, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. I mean, you did kind of warn everybody.
Yeah. You see, Richard, I'm guessing, was something of an avid jogger, at least based on our victim count.
Okay.
He didn't attack women that were out on their regular jogging route. He found victims while he was jogging, and they were doing any number of things that don't necessarily lead to a heightened state of awareness or alertness. Just being a person out in the world.
Just peopling around.
Mm-hmm. Richard, or Dick, as I more often refer to him, is a tough nut to crack. It's a bit more difficult to find information outside of the latest news related to his parole hearings and his upcoming release. But don't worry, we'll get there. But as is true in most of these cases, he stated that he was abused by his father as a child, which, if true, it sounds like it was pretty horrific. He has reportedly described being beaten with an electrical cord.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah. And that's prior to his father eventually abandoning the family.
Okay.
So if it's true, not a great start in life.
No.
I didn't come across much that would help me to substantiate those details of his earlier life. Got a few things out there floating in the world, so I may come back with an update. We'll see.
Yay.
Come on for ya. There's another detail about Richard Gillmore I couldn't initially substantiate as well. Apparently, he wanted to become a cop.
Weird.
And as you might have guessed, it was far too salacious a thread to just drop it. So I dug in deep, and we're going to come back to that.
Okay.
The first victim that we'll talk about is referred to as Mallory in the limited source material regarding her assault, because she never shared her real name and story publicly.
Okay.
On January 8th of 1979, she was a 22-year-old woman simply going about her evening, cooking dinner in her Multnomah County home. When she saw someone in the apartment hallway, at first glance, she thought it must have been her roommate. But unfortunately, her evening was about to take a dark turn as the realization that this was not her roommate settled in. The intruder beat her pretty badly before raping her, leaving her with 2 black eyes and a broken nose from the attack.
Jesus.
It's funny, that choice of words. She recalled the fact that she recited the Lord's Prayer angered her assailant.
Oh my God. No.
I know. I just was like, not that we don't ever say it, but the fact that Jesus was your...
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Still, she was determined to survive because her brother had passed away the previous year from drowning.
Oh.
This was also why she said she kept the information regarding the assault, even from her mother, who was really struggling emotionally still from his passing.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
Because, of course, this had to be a multi-layered tragedy. And you guys, I'm so sorry because I needed to talk about this case and make sure that literally everyone everywhere in the world that listens to us would know that this is happening. But obviously there's more. I spoke to a woman named Danielle Tudor. During the time that I spent chatting with her, I came to know her as an incredibly kind, intelligent, motivated, and compassionate woman. She was attacked on November 11th of 1979. She is believed to be the 3rd victim in a series of rapes, many of which happened in the neighborhood area around her home at the time. When she spoke to the police following her assault, another nearby woman had been attacked already, just over a month later, on the day after Christmas in 1979.
Oh.
There was no way that anyone could have known that Gillmore had already made a mistake roughly a year prior that would play a significant role in him eventually losing his freedom.
Oh, snap.
We don't have a lot of information about a number of details in that specific case, but what we do have is one very important piece of the puzzle, no doubt. In 1978, an unnamed woman was assaulted in the neighborhood where both Danielle and the woman who we're referring to as Mallory lived. It wouldn't be long before it would become apparent that it was likely the start of a series of brutal crimes against the young women in and around the Portland metro area.
Okay. It's just so close to home.
Yeah. Danielle Tudor, who is now an advocate for victims of sexual assault, as well as for better legislation around those crimes, was just 17 years old when Gillmore attacked her in her Southeast Portland home.
17?
She was also the only victim to see Gilmore's face well enough to describe it in any detail.
Wow.
With her recollections of his appearance, law enforcement was able to have an artist produce a composite sketch that helped lead to his arrest in 1986.
That's awesome. That's a lot of responsibility for a 17-year-old, though. Oh, my God.
Yeah. By that time, Gilmore had sexually assaulted 8 other women in the late 1970s and early 1980s. That's what police would later learn. When we spoke back in October, she shared a terrifying memory from the days following her attack.
Oh.
She worked at Fred Meyer through the holidays. Her father worked at Fred Meyer at the time, a fact that likely helped to put both of their minds at ease to some degree in the difficult days immediately after her sexual assault. But the relief quickly faded when none other than Richard Gilmore himself came through her checkout line.
No.
She described knowing immediately at the sight and the smell of him that he was the man that had attacked her. She felt completely frozen. She knew it was him. She said at the time she tried to act as if she had no idea who he was, just to get him out of the store. And I'll reveal some insights that Danielle shared about Richard Gilmore that might paint this encounter with a very dark brush after we go through some additional facts of the case.
Okay. That sounds so fucking scary.
Yeah.
And the smell. You don't forget, you know?
Yeah. Never.
Ugh.
This next section focuses on Elisa Warner, who had since moved to Anchorage at the time that her story was told by the Oregonian. She was raped on March 2nd of 1980 in the backyard of her boyfriend's Southeast Portland home.
Oh my God.
On that night, back in 1980, she was a 16-year-old Gresham Union high school student.
Wow.
While at a female friend's house, the two had been listening to music and drinking beer. Pretty typical night for a lot of teenagers.
Yeah.
That night, she argued with her boyfriend before he stormed off. Around 3 a.m., she walked to his house, hoping to wake him by banging on the bedroom window. Nothing good happens after midnight, kids.
No.
When she didn't have any luck waking him, she sat in the front yard because, as she put it, I thought I better not walk home because I could get raped.
Oh my God. That thought was literally in her head.
Luck, fate, or just unfortunate circumstances, whatever it was about to fail her a second time that night. As a hand clamped over her mouth, she started to turn and was immediately met with a punch. The man said, "Scream and I'll kill you." When she tried to stand, he pushed her down, holding her hands behind her back. And this is where I'm going to just let you guys know I'm going to try really hard to give you as many of the facts of the case without going out of our way to be too graphic, but there is going to be a description of sexual assault.
Okay. I'll be rubbing my crystal.
Mm-hmm. As he began forcing her into the backyard and lifting up her shirt, covering her face with it as he did, she decided it was best not to challenge him. She thought back to a class at school and what she had learned about stranger rape. Because women have to think about these things. And it's clear that so many of these women and girls had very distinct thoughts about what they would or wouldn't do or how something like this would affect them. And it just is so heartbreaking.
It's crazy. And then you talk to a man and they're like, they've never had those thoughts, you know?
No.
I mean, I'm sure some men do, but the majority of them don't have to think about that.
Yeah, it's... Her initial attempts to play along were unsuccessful. She began yelling for help, but no one heard her and no one was coming. That horrific realization settled in as he forcibly removed all of her clothes except her shirt before raping her. She tried to stand after he was finished, but he hit her in the face and kicked her in the stomach.
God.
Before threatening to cut off one of her breasts as a souvenir.
Oh my God. What, like that one guy?
Jerry Brudos, I think.
Fucking Jerry.
Fucking Jerry.
Ugh.
He instructed her to count to 100 and then took off. After the attack, she sat crying before gathering herself enough to cover herself up with her t-shirt. Then she began pounding on the window again. It was her boyfriend's mother that finally woke up to find her in that horrific state.
Oh.
How is anyone sleeping that heavily?
Do they have
Teenage boys. I mean...
Yeah. Does he have a sound machine and earplugs in and he's snoring?
I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know. It's just, that kind of blew my mind because she's pounding on the window.
Yeah. I hope he wasn't purposefully ignoring her, you know? Not that I'm like accusing him of that. But,
no, but
you know, if you get in a fight. You know.
And you don't realize how something like that could really result in obviously something far more harmful than you intended.
Even if he was ignoring her, like he couldn't have known.
No, exactly. The woman brought her inside, providing her with a blanket and some clothes. Though the woman wanted to call the police, Warner refused. Looking back on that night, she'd said, "I was scared. I was outside after curfew."
Oh, so she thought she'd get in trouble.
Yep. I mean, just classic, you know, the victim blames themselves far too often.
Yeah.
Eventually, when the woman returned her to her friend's home, they called the rape crisis hotline.
Oh.
Police were also notified, and to her dismay, they of course told her that she needed to call her mother. She remembered that call, where she cried to her mother as she explained. Her mother, and I'm going to try to say this delicately, her good-for-nothing piece of shit boyfriend, arrived to pick her up at the hospital. Oh, would you look at that? Guess I wasn't feeling that delicate after all.
This is the boyfriend that wouldn't wake up?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. But we're all about to find out why.
Okay, I was just going to ask.
Yeah. Nothing up to this point was his fault.
Okay.
He yelled at her all the way home.
What?
Elisa said, sure enough, he laid into me, telling me it was all my fault, that I was a tease and had asked for it.
Can I find this guy? I'm going to cut his fucking dick off. I don't even care. Allegedly.
Allegedly. Yeah. Listen, in this instance, there may be a more important dick at the head of the line.
I want to take all the dicks off.
I mean, well,
all the bad ones.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, God, that makes me so mad.
Just like in Mallory's case, a lot of tragedy had been lain at the feet of a struggling young woman. You see, Elisa had lost her father just 3 years prior when he died by suicide after hanging himself.
No.
Though I'm sure it wasn't easy, Elisa made it out alive. She finished high school, then went on to marry and have a daughter. At the time of her interview, she was married to her third husband. Even though she still has family in the state of Oregon, she rarely visits because of the attack all those years ago.
I don't blame her.
Listen, Alaska is beautiful, but I never want something to happen to someone that's so ugly that they flee their home state, regardless of what state it is, and the next best thing is to move to Anchorage and never come back.
Yeah.
Kind of seems fucked.
Well, especially now that he's getting out. Like, fuck.
Yeah, she's never. I mean, she'll never want to come back, is my prediction. 1980 was a busy year for Gillmore, it seems.
Ew.
Yes. Though it wouldn't be until decades later that 2 other victims' names and stories would be revealed. There's Colleen Kelly, who was just 13 years old in 1980 when she was assaulted by Gillmore.
13?
Mm-hmm. He broke into her Southeast Portland home. He raped her in October of that year on her mother's birthday.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. She would later become a very strong voice amongst many advocating for victims of sexual assault. So good for her.
I love when
holy fuck,
women take their pain and suffering and turn it into good.
Yeah. You're going to get a little bit of both sides of the coin.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to do that. That's a very hard thing to do.
Yeah. The second was Renee Smith, also a teenager at 17 years old in 1980 when Gillmore raped her. At the time, Renee was living with her boyfriend in a rented home on Southeast 141st Avenue in Portland. This one's really icky, okay?
Do you need the crystal?
Yeah, maybe
do?
just for this one. Okay. She had dropped out of Gresham High School following her freshman year. Her attack occurred shortly after her boyfriend left at around 5:30 p.m. on December 11th of 1980 to play basketball with friends nearby. She had been washing dishes in the kitchen. Once finished, she walked from the kitchen toward the master bedroom. And it was then that she thought she heard a noise in their spare bedroom. She didn't think anything of it since she was home alone. But that's when Gillmore grabbed her, seemingly out of nowhere. He covered her mouth as he put his arms around her waist. She said she tried to scream, but it's pretty unlikely anyone would have heard her strained pleas. Meanwhile, Gillmore also had a pretty firm grip on her. He told Renee to be quiet and move as he shoved her toward the bedroom. He moved quickly, knocking her onto the bed and instructing her to roll onto her back before covering her face with a blanket in the already darkened bedroom. He tied her wrists together with a man's white sock. Gross.
Okay.
Which he apparently had with him before.
Oh, it was his sock?
I guess. Before pushing her shirt up and removing her shorts and underwear. And you guys, I'm not sure if I can put into words how much I hate what he said next to her. I'm pretty sure it ends up just becoming like a feral animal noise. He asked, "Are you going to help?"
What? Excuse me?
Which, of course, was a question that she couldn't probably even wrap her head around answering. He took this as a no and forced her legs apart. And if you thought the dialogue needed a rewrite in his sick little scene, I have really bad news. Gillmore said, "Oh, you must be loving this," as he raped her.
Ew. The fuck? Like,
and I would normally probably not include some of the very pointed details in this case, but I feel like we need to really understand that he really took enjoying this to a different level.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to be out there.
Why is he being released?
Don't worry, we're getting to that soon-ish. Renee remained as calm as she could in the hopes that it would be over quickly. Spoiler alert, it sounds like that was a safe bet based on the time of her call to police and other details in the timeline. Yes, you heard me correctly. While I'm sure you won't hear it confirmed in any court documents, I'd like to go on record as having suggested that Richard Gillmore is a two-pump chump.
Like, God, thank goodness, you know?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not hoping for stamina in these instances. I really just kind of want to punk him for his... I don't even know what to... I can't even finish the sentence, so I'm just going to keep going.
I mean, any way you can roast shitty ass fucking people, I say go for it, you know?
Yeah. I feel that's where my heart was. Yeah. Once Gilmore had fled and Renee was able to free herself, because remember, her hands are tied, she reached under the bed where her boyfriend kept a .44 Magnum before calling the police at 6:20 p.m.
Oh.
She waited in the living room, dressed only in her tank top with a sleeping bag wrapped around her body, still holding the gun until police arrived.
Oh.
Multnomah County deputies arrived quickly, so an A for response time, but after the traumatic experience she just had, it was a bit unsettling that they did so with their guns drawn. And I just can't even imagine being a 17-year-old absolutely scared out of my skull and having to go through what she did and literally having to explain, I'm the victim.
Yeah.
Her mother and boyfriend, as well as a rape victim's advocate, came to the hospital to be with her as the onerous and re-traumatizing rape kit was undertaken.
Oh.
Renee struggled significantly after her attack. And as we'll find, this is unfortunately all too common. She experienced a failed marriage and drug abuse until she moved back to a place that she remembered being happy as a child. Her family had vacationed on the Oregon coast prior to her attack. There, she began working at a motel. She was the fourth victim to come forward when Richard Gilmore was attacking women around Portland. Despite a scent dog tracking him for blocks, the police would not be able to identify a suspect. That wouldn't come until about 6 years later.
Oh my
in
God.
1986.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
It just
No,
like
you're good. You can't
spilled
know.
out
Yeah.
of me.
I know. I know. But we're just wrapping up in 1980. In January of 1981, 25-year-old Patricia Henkel was house sitting for her brother. That night, Gilmore waited until after dark to approach the home. It was then that he unscrewed the light on the porch. He rang the doorbell and waited for her to answer.
Don't answer.
I know.
Don't answer.
Don't ever answer if you can't, check. As soon as she answered the door, he began choking her while also punching her in the face.
How do you do it that fast?
He raped her in the side yard of the home. Following the assault, Patricia developed substance abuse issues. So the tough part in this instance is that Patricia was one of, I would assume, several victims, just based on everything that I researched, that really didn't want to pursue charges. And a lot of them didn't even want to go and have the rape kit done. And because we were starting to learn a little bit more about this mysterious serial rapist in Portland, law enforcement and Patricia's brother had pretty good reason to suspect that this person stalked their victims ahead of the attack.
Oh.
Patricia was house sitting.
Oh.
So that meant that whoever attacked her had more than likely intended to attack his wife.
Oh my God.
So he insisted on, like, no, we have to pursue this. And I mean, that's such a tough decision for someone to make, because it is very traumatic to go through the legal aspects of it, you know, the physical and medical aspects of what the follow-up looks like. It's incredibly difficult. And I think you guys know how this goes by now. Seems like the hits keep coming in threes. Patricia's mother died unexpectedly of a heart attack in 1986.
Oh.
Her unexpected passing contributed to a worsening downward spiral for Patricia, ultimately culminating in Patricia's death by suicide on Mother's Day of 1988.
Oh, that is so fucking sad.
I know.
On Mother's Day.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what she was thinking about.
I know. Now, as often happens in these cases, it's likely that we don't have information for every victim. And there are also likely a number of women that haven't come forward that were attacked at some point when Gillmore was active. And I always want to say alive. Unfortunately, obviously, he's still alive. And this is especially true if they realized that the statute of limitations had expired on the crimes committed against them. I've done extensive research to try to find the stories for any victim that has come forward between 1978 and today. For now, at least, we've reached the story of the last confirmed victim of Richard Gillmore.
Wow.
Tiffany Edens would become Richard Gillmore's final victim on December 6th of 1986. Tiffany was listening to the radio while she was cleaning around her family home in Gresham when the music suddenly switched off.
Oh.
The man that suddenly confronted her was holding a blanket to his face and torso, which seems like an odd choice, but to say that it's the least of our problems in this story is an understatement.
Was he trying to be a ghost?
I don't know. I think he just didn't want the victim seeing his face. Because as we know already, Danielle is the only victim to have actually seen his face well enough to have given a description.
Yeah. Ugh.
He tackled her to the ground. Tiffany called the police once he left following her attack. Her mother had been at work and arrived home to see police vehicles outside the front of her home.
That is so scary.
Yeah. Remember when I told you that he wanted to be a cop?
Mm-hmm.
Well, turns out his fingerprints were on file from that endeavor.
Oh, well, that's good.
Mm-hmm. And they were tied to prints left behind at the scene of his very first assault.
But
Yeah.
But
just took quite a few years to get there. And I don't really have a great answer for why. I don't know exactly what year his prints were taken, but I would gather it was sometime closer to his arrest in 86. That's what I gather. Because if they had them on file the entire time, there's no way he wouldn't have been arrested sooner.
Okay. I was about to say, did someone just fuck up somewhere or? Okay.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that too is my assumption was that rather than the prints being left at the very first scene, I assumed that they would have been taken from Patricia's case, where he tampered with a light bulb on the front porch. So, like, that's what you would suspect, right?
Yeah.
No. But this turns out to be a bit of a good news, bad news type situation.
Okay.
He was in the process of being hired as a Gresham police officer at the time of his arrest.
He was in the process?
Yep. Which is, of course, the last job on earth this man should ever be hired for.
Oh my God.
Or definitely right at the top of the list.
Can you imagine their faces when they're like, this guy they were just about to hire is a fucking
Cassie,
rapist?
You, seriously, you cannot. This is particularly alarming because he had moved in the line of applicants from 97th up to number 70 already, when the department planned to hire 25 officers in total. At the time, they were working on the background check for applicant number 40. There were literally 30 people or less standing between him and becoming a Gresham police officer.
Oh God. Wow.
A little too close for my comfort, personally.
Yeah.
I could not believe that.
But thank goodness, like the timing did work out. Even if he was close,
Yeah.
it
I
worked
mean,
out.
Unbelievable. Immediately, we're moving on to another good news, bad news situation here. While he wasn't going to continue moving up in the hiring process and was arrested following the attack on Tiffany Edens, there's a statute of limitations for rape in the state of Oregon. As we know, various evidence and/or witness accounts were gathered that would tie him to numerous crimes, 9 at that point in time. But they could only prosecute him for 1.
I was going to say, you better not say fucking one of them.
That was Tiffany's assault. Now, before I tell you what the current statute is, I want you to know that just a handful of years ago, it was just 6 years in the state of Oregon, which is why they could only prosecute him for 1.
Wow. I was going to ask too. I'm glad you said.
Oh, we're getting real legal up in here.
Okay.
What? Like it's hard? The statute has since been changed by House Bill 2317, which was signed by the governor on June 16th of 2015, my mom's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Gail. And went into effect on January 1st of 2016.
What was the first date?
It was June 16th of 2015 that the governor signed the bill.
Okay.
And it went into effect basically January 1, the following year,
Okay.
2016.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing like a huge gap. And I was
Nope.
like, wait a minute. What did she say first?
No, but for some reason, even though we knew that that statute of limitations kept us from prosecuting all 9 of the crimes and left only 1, it took until 2015.
Oh, that's
the
where. Yes. Okay. I was like, there's a gap somewhere.
So here's how the statute reads for rape in the first degree currently. Prosecution against the perpetrator of this crime must commence within 12 years after commission of the offense, or if the victim was under 18 at the time of the commission, anytime before victim reaches 30. There's also an exception for cases where there's DNA evidence now, which seems like fucking duh.
Yeah.
It's a huge improvement upon the prior statute, but
Okay.
it's not enough, according to some advocates.
What is even the point of having a fucking time limit? Like, I don't understand. If there's going to be evidence found it shouldn't matter the time.
There's no statute of limitations for murder, attempted murder, which was not always the case.
Wow.
Somebody has to far too frequently fight for them to change rules that just don't make any sense. I don't know if maybe they did. Maybe they did once upon a time. I don't know. So we'll also share a link in the Pastebin providing my sources, which you can find those in the show notes, show description. It's from Oregon Live, and it gives an incredibly detailed account tracking the progression and detailed inventory of voting pertaining to House Bill 2317. Danielle Tudor is one of many who has and continues pushing the state of Oregon to either up the limit to 20 years or eliminate it entirely.
Let's go for elimination, babe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share a quote from a prior interview where she discussed the bill back in 2015. And even though I actually spoke to her personally, I really liked this one. So I still threw it in from another source.
Okay.
We cannot change the past and what has happened with us, but we can change the future. Also taken from that same Pamplin article, based on a 1998 report by the National Institute of Justice and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and cited on the RAINN website, 1 of every 6 women in the United States is a survivor of rape or a target of attempted rape. And about 3% of men have been rape victims. Survivors are more than statistics.
It's just too many.
It's far too many. But let's get back to Gillmore for a second.
Ugh. All right.
As the youngest of the 9, Tiffany was the victim of the only prosecutable crime following her attack in 1986. She testified against him at his trial, and at the tender age of 15, she would speak at his sentencing as well.
Wow.
She was 13 when he attacked her.
Oh, what a badass little girl, though.
I know.
Speaking at the trial and the sentencing.
And the sentencing.
Wow.
Yeah. And I want you to remember that.
I will.
Okay. At the time, victim impact statements were brand new. In fact, it passed the day prior to her assault. So holy hell, the timing.
What? That's crazy.
To think we might not allow a victim to speak in the courtroom to the perpetrator is just unfathomable now. But all of the aspects of our legal system have established precedents that often change with the political leaning of any given era.
Okay.
Judge Richard Eunice sentenced Richard Troy Gillmore to the maximum of 30 years for the rape with a 15 minimum before parole. He also sentenced him with a 30-year maximum for burglary. So I want to point this out here. Really messed up sentencing here. That burglary and rape essentially carry the same sentencing guidelines. Speaking of political leaning, I want you to remember that.
Okay.
Okay? Remember that this Rovember, ladies.
Yeah. Oh, man. There's a lot to say about that.
Oh, and it's going to get so much worse because the legal system just can't fucking help but re-victimize women.
I'm like fucking with my cord again. That's
over and over and over and over again. It is so disgusting in this case. Though he couldn't be sentenced for his other crimes, the judge took the other victims into account at sentencing.
Okay.
So, especially because it's about to take a super dark turn that explains why we're talking about this case so urgently. Okay?
Oh, it's going to get darker?
Mm-hmm. In 1988, the parole board cut his sentence in half. And with that, Caitlin's brain exploded. The year of my goddamn birth, the state of Oregon betrayed me.
But why?
That's why he's getting out. They cut his sentence in half.
Was he being a good little prisoner? No, not even that.
Cassie, when I say my brain exploded, it's not one of those metaphorical things here.
Please tell me there was a good reason.
Wish I could.
They just were like, meh, he can come back.
Trust me, I'm gonna go into this and you're just gonna be like, what in the actual fuck?
Okay.
Back in August, present day, his prison sentence was set to end on November 29th of 2023.
Okay.
But as luck would have it, one fuck up led to another, trying to clean up from the prior. So while the reported date has shifted numerous times from January 1st of 2023, it's now slated for December 16th. The reasoning being that based on the parole guidelines, they are able to impose the maximum stipulations regarding his release. So they fucked up and cut his sentence in half. And now they're like, oh shit, that decision has aged really poorly. So we're going to actually end up releasing him like several months early so that we can actually impose some conditions to his release. That's where we are.
So it's 2022 of December 2022?
Yep. So he'll be out in, less than 90 days.
Is there any way to change it?
No. There's no way to change his release date. There's very little that we can do to impact the outcome of this case, even in a small way. But I am going to get to that.
Okay.
Still, it should come as very small comfort that they've got these stipulations for his release. As even though he will have to register as a level 1 sex offender, that's considered the lowest risk level. It gets worse and won't even require new neighbors to receive advance notice of his presence in the area.
How is that even possible?
Authorities have indicated he could have been responsible for as many as 100, as in triple ass digits. 100. 100 different rapes, sexual assaults around the city of Portland while he was active. Because if you think about it, there's roughly a 5-year gap where we don't have a lot of information about anyone he may have attacked. And then he's arrested. They suspect probably upwards of 40, but it could be as many as 100.
Who suspects this?
Law enforcement.
Oh, okay. The ones that are releasing him and making him file as a 1?
I mean, technically, law enforcement, when we're referring to detectives versus the parole board, different entities, and you're talking about different people over multiple decades, but I'm still fucking angry, so I bring this up, not just because he's about to be released, which is horrifying and people need to be aware, but also because if you somehow missed the coverage previously or didn't feel ready to come forward, those victims especially should be aware, particularly in light of what I learned from speaking with Danielle. She came forward publicly in 2008. she attended his 2010 and 2012 parole hearings, which I'll share after a brief aside here about kind of the parole historical data for him. I'm going to give you some of that insight that Danielle shared. So, even if additional victims were to come forward at this time, unfortunately, even that wouldn't stop his release because, again, the statute of limitations really screws us up all over again. We can't prosecute him for anything that would have occurred before he went to prison.
Okay.
Because it's been 36 years. Thankfully, my research indicates that parole board members no longer have the power to cut sentences.
That's good.
Which is probably for the best in light of the fact that the parole board also violated the victim's rights by never informing them of his hearings, which is actually required by Oregon state law.
Shouldn't that make it like not a thing then? Like take it back if they broke the rules?
Yeah. Unfortunately, they broke the rules so many times at different points in history that it's like to unravel this. And you can't. They're
like she said, though, you can't change the past. Only the future.
Yep. But they went for a shit sandwich full meal deal. The parole board voted to release him in 2007. But Tiffany Edens and her family, as well as the county DA's office, sued the parole board to block his release, arguing that the victims hadn't been notified. They won, and his release was denied.
Okay.
So they've already fucked up and cut his sentence in half. Then they try to release him in 2007. They fuck up again by not notifying the victims. They lose out in that fight.
Why do they want to release this fucker so bad? I don't understand.
I don't know. The parole board wasn't done with the asshattery. An attempt to bar Danielle Tudor, along with multiple other victims, from speaking at one of Gillmore's parole hearings was made. The Oregon Board of Parole and Post-Prison Supervision in 2012 cited an administrative rule that prevented victims of crimes that weren't prosecuted from speaking at an offender's parole hearing. So let me get this straight. You failed them once because the statute of limitations was 6 years. So you couldn't prosecute their crimes. And now you're going to fail them again because you want to prohibit them from speaking at this monster's parole board hearing because domino effect, you couldn't.
What the fuck?
The state of Oregon told these women, expressly decided and told these women they were not considered victims because they did not meet the legal definition of victim for the purposes of parole board hearings.
Wow. Suck my fucking dick.
Yeah. In 2012, Danielle sued the parole board for their attempt to block her from speaking. And the definition has since changed.
Okay.
Because they did suck her dick.
Good.
Okay. Now, for more information taken from my interview with Danielle. As you might imagine, she is simply in horrified disbelief about his upcoming release. And she shared what she believes was his motivation for declining the last 2 parole hearings that he was eligible for. Keeping in mind, this also means he hasn't had a psych evaluation in 7 years.
Oh.
So they're going to release him, but they haven't had a psych evaluation done in several years.
They don't have to do that first?
I guess not. She explained, though, and this was really interesting. This is where, seeing the system from that perspective, she really did have some insight on why certain things play out the way that they do. She explained that the DA gets a copy of the psych eval, and that is a confidential document, but they can read it in the hearing despite that.
Oh.
Making it public record.
Nice.
So that's what happens is he didn't want to keep going for parole and having a psych eval done and having that become publicly available.
Oh.
He wanted to stay out of the news.
Okay.
Declining the hearing is how he's able to keep information from the public. Details that might alert citizens that he could be considered a high risk for reoffending. Honestly, the last psych eval that he got, 2 doctors evaluated him and they had completely polar opposite opinions. It's like, so I'm sorry, how does that?
Keep testing and make sure.
Like, I don't know, maybe we do it again. Maybe
Just
we get
for fun.
Maybe we get a third opinion.
Oh my God.
And this is probably the worst part. Perhaps most alarming is that Danielle was informed that Gillmore has a revenge list. She shared that the DA and detectives were aware of it, which might lead you to believe this whole Crusade for Christ show behind bars is just that. A show designed to fool anyone that might not be duly informed about the full context of his case and history.
I am so confused.
Yeah, especially when coupled with a couple of other alarming tidbits from said history.
I don't like the alarming tidbits.
I don't either. Like in the 90s, when he called a victim and said, "You girls are going to pay for this."
No.
He also called a detective, the fucking balls on this guy, that worked on his case in 2008 and said, "I'm going to slit the bitch's throat." Now, while I've obtained dozens of items of source material that's publicly available, in addition to speaking to Danielle, I have not yet acquired records that must be specifically requested. We'll just see what we get. Assuming that I can get my hands on them, I'll be very interested to provide an update that may or may not confirm some of these statements. For now, for legal reasons, I will say that the aforementioned stories are alleged, though I'll also add I don't doubt them for a fucking second.
Wow. I don't know. I just don't know how this is happening. I don't get it. How do you have a revenge list? Like, isn't that proof?
I mean, that pretty expressly lays out his intent, right?
What's that? A possibility to reoffend or whatever?
Mhm.
I mean, I know you said allegedly. but-
Very premeditated, if you ask me.
That is just terrifying for everyone involved.
Danielle's tenacity in pursuing meaningful justice is admirable in light of such terrifying statements. She has specifically been called out on the list.
I bet.
But as for the feelings of the youngest confirmed victim, Tiffany, and I don't blame her at all here, she had said even years prior to his scheduled release that she would never testify again at any of his future parole hearings and no longer wanted the case to be a part of her life. Her countless struggles, including drug and alcohol addiction, have simply taken too great a toll. She would recall how difficult it was for her family, even future generations that would later discover the crime that had taken place in their grandmother's home.
Oh.
Every victim of any violent crime has the right to try to deal with and heal from their pain however they feel is best for them. I think it should go without saying, but I want to be very clear about the fact that when discussing how each of these women has chosen to move forward in their lives. Because I completely understand why each of them, has maybe made the specific choice that they have. And everybody is going to feel differently about how to move forward in their life.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no right or wrong way.
No. And we can talk about how Danielle, is so great and such a badass for being proactive and trying to help.
Yeah, she's an advocate. It also took her decades to feel safe enough to come forward.
But that's not saying that any of the other victims are any less for just surviving. Like,
absolutely. I mean, they have a very different path, right?
Yeah.
Tiffany testified and, spoke at his sentencing, and she was very young. And that was immediately following her attack. And she has since decided to try to put that behind her.
Yeah, definitely.
Danielle, she reported the attack, but she didn't speak publicly on this, until many, many years later, and now has become a huge advocate. And I'm sure this has impacted their lives from the moment that it happened.
Yeah.
For all of them. There's no way that it can't.
Yeah. The possible fucking 100 of them. Like, I can't even. Wow.
And this is another thing that Danielle shared with me that was really, truly. So if you're sitting there like I was, wondering who the fuck is on this board? Well, funny you should ask. Currently, they're all pretty new, actually. It's almost a completely, totally new parole board as of 2019.
Is that a good thing?
I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. I mean, cue the eye rolls from both of us, that's for sure. Because in this case, they've done a lot to really royally fuck this up.
Man. The new people?
I mean, at every step of the way. Yeah. I mean, the new people, they're just trying to deal with the situation. I mean, it's gone so far down the road with so many fuck ups, and that's not their fault.
Yeah, they can't do anything about it.
There's only so much they can do.
Yeah.
So it's, for them, it's really going to depend on how they move forward.
I just hope them specifically look at all of this and try to do better.
Yeah. I mean, for this case, they can't.
Yeah.
It's going forward, and it just, that fucking sucks.
Jeez.
Still, it's a mixed bag here, because this is actually some more information on the parole board.
Okay.
Because back in 2016, on March 4th, Oregon's parole board previously voted 4-0 to no longer hold parole hearings every 2 years for Gillmore, which is the only practical example of where they didn't somehow botch this whole situation further. Ultimately, they acknowledged it was re-traumatizing the victims each time ahead of his scheduled release in 2023. So in 2016, what this says is, we know that his release is scheduled for 2023. We don't want to do a hearing every 2 years and pull all of these people away from any sense of normalcy that they've been able to establish. We're not doing it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, before you get too excited, this was due in part to the fact that in January of 2016, he received such an unfavorable evaluation that the board determined he was still dangerous if he were to be released. But I'm sure it's totally fine now, right?
Right.
Because he's remained dangerous for the first 30 years of his sentence, but I'm sure a lot will change in the,
In 2016.
Yeah.
It's been 6 years.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so,
Okay.
He managed to hold on to enough of whatever makes him the ugly monster that he is for the first 30 years of his sentence. But in the last 6, I'm sure he's totally transformed.
Okay. There's a 6 on your shirt, by the way.
Cool. In August this year, Richard Gillmore was transferred from the prison in Umatilla, where he'd been serving his sentence, to a minimum security facility in Portland in preparation for his release. Gillmore says he's not been working since he lost his print shop job when he was transferred from Oregon State Correctional Institute in October 2008 to Two Rivers. So really, no resume to speak of.
In 2008?
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been working since 2008, and they're going to put this fucker on the street.
Yep.
Okay.
But come mid-December, the plan is for him to be released into transitional housing in the Portland Old Town area after serving over 3 decades behind bars at the age of 63.
I don't want to go to Portland now.
Definitely don't want to go to Old Town.
I guess we're not going to, let's see, what else? What's out there in Old Town? Raven's Manor.
Is Raven? I was going to say that's right in Old Town, isn't it?
Pizza.
Yeah.
The fuck?
I know. I feel bad. The other interesting fact that Danielle pointed out, completely blowing my mind, was a startling connection that I hadn't even made between the timing of his release and the nature of his crimes. Richard Gillmore stalked his victims while he was out jogging, a habit that he has maintained to some degree in prison.
Great.
And all of the crimes took place in the fall and winter, roughly October through January. During the seasons where one doesn't have to be out late at odd hours to commit a crime in the shadow of darkness, which could give rise to suspicions on the part of their family or neighbors, Richard Gillmore will have his first taste of freedom under the circumstances he clearly most prefers. And in 3 short years, if he has managed to not reoffend, he'll be able to move freely with no one the wiser. This recipe, a long brewing batch of ugliness, is truly only bound for one thing, and that's disaster. A cheery thought for Portlanders as we enter the holiday season. His hunting season.
Fucking Caitlin. Jesus Christ. You know what I was thinking this whole time was like, wow, thanks for leading us into the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go and say that.
Yeah, he likes to stalk people in the darker months, colder months of the year. Now, the call to action for anyone wanting to do anything, even something small, to help a last-ditch effort advocates are calling for, is to call, email, write a fucking handwritten letter pleading with the president of Crime Victims United, Stephen Dole, and current Oregon Governor Kate Brown to issue an emergency temporary rule that will reassess Richard Gillmore as a high-risk offender until the legislature can fix this broken piece of the system. And I am begging you, as a resident of Oregon, okay, just outside of Portland, especially if you live in Oregon, to urge them to do so. We can't change his release, but we can have a small impact on the level that he's released at. Because after the 3 years are up, he could be in the wind.
That's terrifying.
He'd be 66 years old, but that's still young and potentially healthy enough to be.
I mean, if he's kept up on his jogging,
Yeah.
you know, he could just have been
It's one of the
keeping
things
in shape
Yeah.
for when he gets out.
It's one of the things that Danielle shared with me about her experience attending his parole hearing, is that he complained. This man, fucking the self-pity just thick and dripping. He complained that the other inmates made fun of him for jogging around the track at the prison facility that he was at the time.
Weird.
Because they knew that he'd been called the Jogger Rapist. So they were like, ooh. And I'm like, really?
Good.
Do you have any idea what typically happens to rapists in prison, Richard?
Keep complaining.
Keep complaining. Wow. So
the only thing that is giving me a little teeny bit of comfort is the amount of security people have now, and cameras and alarms. Not to say like put your guard down or anything if you have those things, but that's the only thing giving me like a tiny bit of comfort, because he's been in prison for how long?
Yeah.
Does he even know about that?
I don't know. I don't know. But here's the thing is you can have a gun right underneath your bed.
Know. Yeah. I'm just like looking at cameras. Like if he tries anything, hopefully it will be on a camera or something.
Mm-hmm.
Take self-defense classes. Get a birdie. Get mace.
Honestly, all of that and all of those things are important for us to do to protect ourselves. But I'm just going to say it again. I really do encourage you to take some of the steps that I mentioned, contacting.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I'm going to be trying to include as many links and resources and things within the Pastebin, our usual resources and everything. But I'm going to also try to just link the links that you need to follow up and, take that call to action seriously and try to impact some change. Those I'll just try to get those linked directly in the show notes so that it's dummy proof. There's no excuse.
Let's all write some fucking strongly worded letters.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Caitlin will help me with mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'll just be like, fuck.
Yeah.
Help me be eloquent.
I shall.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea. Maybe we'll just reach out and send a copy of the episode to their emails.
Right? Yeah. With our letters.
Yeah. I love that for us.
Holy shit. Wow.
Well,
okay.
Tarot,
man.
Tarot.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay.
So I did a little pre-shuffle here. It was
Did you do it?
I made Chris do it too because it's really laborious for me. So okay. Just so everybody knows we got another good shuffle in there. I'm going to do one of these this time. I'm going to spread them out.
Oh, well, we can't see. What if you're cheating?
Jeez Louise. I'm not. You suckers.
Oh, we got the hanged one again.
Does that? Oh, wait. Hold on.
Is there two?
No, it feels really thick though.
Those are thick cards compared to mine that you were maybe just touching.
Okay. I'm going to read this one. Chris did have a flyer.
Yeah, when Chris was shuffling, one popped out. Was it upright or was it upside down? Was it this way?
Yeah.
So it was upside down.
Yeah.
Hanged one in reverse. I don't know why we always just get the same cards.
Well, the other one's a different one. No.
No.
Oh, I don't like this for us.
Okay.
Okay, the Hanged Man. Keywords: letting go, surrender, seeing things from a different perspective, sacrifice.
That seems pretty legit.
But the reverse interpretation I'm struggling with. It says, you're at a crossroads, but can't make a decision. You're just swinging in the breeze. To move forward, you must spend time in spiritual development, but you may not be willing to do that. Perhaps you're not paying attention to your real needs, and this is causing frustration. Ask yourself a few questions. Are you sacrificing some part of yourself unnecessarily or refusing to sacrifice what really needs to go? Are you unable to see a matter clearly? Are you hung up about something? Are you being true to yourself? In a reading about money, this card can mean you're clinging to materialistic ideas when you really should work on spiritual development. Sometimes the Hanged Man reversed warns you could be headed for a loss if you don't willingly let go of the past.
Oh, no.
If the reading is about your work, you may feel tied to a job you don't like or that's going nowhere because you're unwilling to make a change. Or you may lack direction or motivation. Instead of seeking the work that's right for you, you're just hanging out, which, I guess that sounds like...
The whole thing just sounds like the parole board.
I was picturing Richard since he hasn't actually had even a job in prison.
I was just thinking it sounds like they're unwilling to make a change. You know what I mean?
Oh, this is interesting too. In a reading about love, you may cling to a relationship you've outgrown instead of making a change, or you're hung up on someone who doesn't return your affection. Perhaps you're unwilling to sacrifice a habit or behavior for the good of the relationship.
That's terrifying. The revenge list.
Fuck. Okay, I didn't really want that to make sense, but I guess it does. Fuck.
Yeah.
Oh. I wanted this card to just be totally off base. I really did. And the other card that we have is Temperance. Yeah. This was the flyer, so.
This is the one that popped out while Chris was shuffling. Was it? It was right side up, yeah?
It was. Yeah, he handed it to me right side up.
Temperance. A beautiful woman with angel wings.
Okay. Keywords are moderation, harmony, acceptance, resolution, cooperation, and patience. Let's see. I'm going to skip over the description of the card because it's exactly the same between the two decks. Upright, temperance indicates a time of inner growth and outer harmony. You're learning to temper your ego needs with the needs of the spirit within. With patience, you can blend disparate elements of yourself and your world into a harmonious whole. In a reading about money, moderation is key. Don't expect immediate gains or huge profits at this time. This card may indicate a period where your finances are balanced, or it may recommend getting money matters in order. If the reading is about your job, Temperance represents a time of cooperation and relative peace in your workplace. It can also recommend distributing responsibilities and rewards among coworkers in an equitable way. Sometimes this card tells you to balance work and play. In a reading about love, Temperance urges you to heal rifts, avoid ego struggles, and seek peace in a relationship. It can also advise you to let a relationship develop at its own pace. Don't try to rush things. Oh my God, the extra excerpt. Okay. The word temperance derives from the Latin temperare, which means to moderate, blend, or mix together harmoniously. Interestingly, this card was named Time in early decks, which provides a key to its underlying meaning. Temperance encourages patience. Things happen at their own pace, in their own time. This is one of the great lessons of the Zen masters. There are times when nothing can be done and nothing needs to be done.
Wow. I think that flew out for a reason. That's crazy.
I think there are some things that I'm kind of glomming onto, and it's hard to even put it into words, but I think maybe in a way for some of these women, they're kind of getting to a point where despite what's happening, it sounds like some of them have really tried to find, that peace and
acceptance of the situation. For them, there is a resolution.
Yeah.
Even though it feels like this is being reopened anew. And patience, cooperation. I mean, you know, Danielle and Colleen Kelly, who have worked so hard to advocate, I think, you know, don't rush things. And sometimes these things don't happen quickly. Well, very little that's been worth a damn in this. And just like many other endeavors has come quickly.
Wow.
It's interesting because in the description of the picture on the card, and this is the only part that I'll just kind of briefly skim through, the word vessel relates to the great mother goddesses of antiquity, and the human body is often referred to as the vessel of the soul. Thus, both the angelic figure and the cups are symbolic references to the feminine force.
Fuck yeah.
And it's so interesting because it's like what's happened to them in their bodies and how definitely those things have had such an impact on their lives. But, you know, for all of them, the things that they've done to try to, you know, repair that damage to their hearts and to their soul. Oh, I didn't think that either of those was really going to feel right for me, but there's definitely some connections there. And it's a long and winding path in the background, kind of. It looks like that, you know, now she's kind of come down to the water to draw from.
Yeah.
That's
I feel like
kinda
we definitely needed both the cards to balance out what's happening, I think.
I know Chris asked if the Temperance card was a Joker card.
Yeah, because he's never seen it before.
Yeah, he was like, I've never seen that one. Is that a real card?
Yes.
And it sure is.
It is.
Wow. It is a real card. That is a...
I really like the wings on
I do too. And you notice they both have like strong features of red and the blue with the water. And the fact that Temperance is such a strong feminine card.
Strong feminine ladies here. We're gonna...
Wow.
We can change some stuff, I think.
Yeah.
It might take time, but we can do it.
Patience is not a virtue that I am endowed with. But I digress.
Oh, man. That was rough.
It was. But I felt like this is just, I mean, it's so timely and it was just too important not to.
Timely?
Yeah. Oh, God. It just felt like it had to be something that we talked about.
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't look forward to any aspect of this, but
as much as I hate you telling me, I'm glad I know.
Yeah.
So,
you know.
All right.
Oh my gosh. On that note.
Yeah, I know. Have a creepy ass day.
See you next Tuesday. Or December 16th. Or not. See ya. Never wanna be ya.
Don't listen to our podcast.
Ew. So for all of you that are listening, if you have any true crime or paranormal stories that you want us to share, maybe with the whole Pacific Northwest.
Yes, we would love to read them on the pod.
Yes, we will read them out loud.
Not just in our heads.
Yes. They don't have to be from the Pacific Northwest if you would like to share. Email us at pnwhauntsandhomicides@gmail.com. It's all spelled out, no special characters. Super duper easy peasy.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Same thing as the email at pnwhauntsandhomicides, all spelled out, no special characters. Please also rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening to, and check out our stories on social media because our meme game is hot.
Agreed.
And if you agree, like Caitlin, you can also find us on Patreon and support the show.
Bitchin'.
Every time you say that, I don't know why I think of like Monsters Inc. When the guy's got a sock on him and they're like, we have a 2319 or whatever.
Oh.
I don't know the number, but like that's what it's reminding me of. I don't even know if it starts with 23.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm trying to remember.
I gotta look it up. Or it's just gonna bug me. Contamination code. It's a 2319. I was
gonna say, I thought it was. Like, I don't know why, but
How
that
did I pull
sounded
that out
right.
of my ass? Oh my god.